Hey, gentlemen, how are you? You have to have a lot of lung power to do that?
Yeah, you have.
Gene, you can get different sounds out of it, too, huh?
Yeah, you gotta be able to blow pretty strong.
Who is the head man of the group here, gentlemen?
Well, we're all heads.
Hi everyone, this is Will from Will P Guitar, and today we have another non-guitar video for y'all. If you think of Austin music, who are the names you think of? Of course, Willie Nelson and his band of outlaw country friends will come to mind, and the Texas blues of Stevie Ray Vaughan. But what if we return to a time before Austin had a dominant music scene? A time when Austin was little more than a college town, only around 80 to 100,000 strong. I would like to take you back to 1962 and share the story of the psychedelic rock scene that started it all in Austin. Our story begins at none other than my own school, the University of Texas at Austin, at the Student Union, where a burgeoning folk scene was developing on campus as a part of the broader folk movement in the US during the early 60s. A name you may recognize for her musical stardom and untimely death in 1970, Janis Joplin, was attending UT as a student and spearheading the movement at the university. A man by the name of Tommy Hall was also attending UT during this time as a chemical engineering and philosophy major, and became intrigued by the writings of Aldous Huxley and Timothy Leary about certain chemicals that would blend his love of philosophy and the sciences. At this point, in Texas, marijuana was highly illegal and was seen by many as akin to drugs like methamphetamines and heroin, leading it to be cautiously consumed by Austinites seeking to be part of the music scene and explore psychedelia. The primary psychedelic in Austin up until LSD was introduced in 1965 was peyote, which was naturally occurring in Texas. At first, students would just eat the cactus and deal with its unpalatable taste, which led many to throw it up or have similar reactions. Over time, though, chemistry and anthropology students discovered that you could boil down the cactus into the chemical mescaline, which could be put into pills and be taken more easily than eating the cactus. Also during the early 60s, Rocky Erickson, a singer and guitarist from local William B. Travis High School in Austin, was burning out in school and had moved to an apartment in Austin. Having practiced a lot on his own and with his best friend George Kinney at home, Rocky had fostered a striking and abrasive vocal style that was perfect for rock and roll. He joined the local band The Spades, who were at the time one of the only rock bands in Austin and were in need of a vocalist. It may be hard to imagine an Austin without rock music, but during this time, there were few bars for bands to play, and the bands that were around primarily played fraternity and sorority parties and high school dances. So this was how the Spades started, eventually moving on to playing the Jade Room, the primary venue for rock at the time, and gathering a following of Austinites. In 1965, high school friends from Kerrville, John Ike Walton, Stacy Sutherland, and Benny Thurman found an enjoyable summer gig playing rock and roll for vacationers in Port Aransas under the name The Lingsmen. On a fateful trip to South Texas to buy peyote, Tommy Hall ran into the trio after having remembered meeting them briefly before in Austin. Sometime later, on November 24th of that year, the Lingsmen had met back with their acquaintance Tommy, who had introduced the friends to LSD, and brought them to the Jade Room to see a new local act, the Spades. After the Spades played their set, Rocky was intrigued by the look of the Lingsmen and Tommy, and met with them after the show. They all were interested in each other's musical ideas, and ended up going back to Tommy's apartment that night to jam and smoke marijuana. This was the night that the 13th floor elevators formed, and would be the catalyst for a psychedelic period in Austin. The elevators became a quick sensation in Austin, playing the Jade Room until trouble with the law over marijuana possession got them fired there. This bust only really helped with their reputation in Austin, however, and they played the New Orleans, which was willing to cash in on their infamy, despite their illegal activities. As they gained popularity, they toured around Texas and created records in Dallas. Once their court date approached and the law finally caught up with them, the elevators moved to San Francisco for most of 1966. In California, they honed their set and prepared for an album, which they recorded at the end of 1966 when they returned to Dallas to fulfill record contracts. In 1967, with their return to Austin, the elevators found themselves needing to capitalize on their success in California and new record sales from their album The Psychedelic Sounds of the 13th Floor Elevators. The strategy they went with was to create a new production company called The Electric Grandmother, which would host shows at a new venue. This company would end up becoming the Vulcan Gas Company, and its shows would be the most popular over the next 3 years until it shut down in 1970. In 1967, the Elevators would perform with another stylistically similar band, the Conqueroo, with whom they would jam during live shows. Despite the Elevators stalling in popularity and eventually disbanding in 1969, they remained local legends, and Rocky and Tommy in particular were some of the biggest celebrities in Austin for a time. They went on to release 1967's Easter Everywhere, which became a cult classic and inspired many other local psychedelic acts, such as the Red Krayola, Shiva's Headband, the Golden Dawn, and numerous other smaller bands. The Red Krayola recorded their debut avant-garde record, The Parable of the Arable Land, in 1967, following a double billing show with the Elevators, where they invited most of the audience into the studio to create avant-garde jams they called freeform freakouts. This record has received similar critical acclaim to the Elevators' works for being extremely ahead of its time. Shiva's Headband represented a more Texas-tinted take on psychedelia, incorporating a fiddle player and other themes from bluegrass and country music into their sound. The Golden Dawn, fronted by Rocky's high school best friend George Kinney, was also active during the same time as the Elevators and is best known for their 1967 release Power Plant. While all these artists are interesting and worth exploring in their own right, I believe that the most enduring influence that these early psychedelic pioneers have had on Texas music is the influence that can be heard in fusing psychedelic ideas and country music. Amid the vibrant yet little-known psych rock scene in Austin, a soon-to-be country star in Jerry Jeff Walker met fellow singer-songwriter Bob Bruno in 1966, who together would form the short-lived psych rock band Circus Maximus. Circus Maximus was active in New York for only around 2 years and released 2 albums in their short lifespan, until breaking up to allow Jerry Jeff Walker to pursue his folk writing ambitions and the success of 1968's Mr. Bojangles. After living in New York for most of his life and drifting around the US for a time, Jerry Jeff Walker decided to settle in Austin in 1971 after his love of the laid-back nature of the town drew him back. Considered perhaps adjacent to the outlaw country scene that was soon to be in Austin, singer-songwriter Townes Van Zandt was roommates with Rocky Erickson, actually, in 1968 for a time, and would go on to release many critically acclaimed albums during the late 60s and early 70s. Perhaps the most direct impact of the late 60s Austin psych scene was the creation of the Armadillo World Headquarters. In 1970, Shiva's Headband manager, Eddie Wilson, realized the void that was left by the dissolution of the Vulcan Gas Company and the 13th floor Elevators, and hoped to fill the void with his new venue, the Armadillo World Headquarters. The Armadillo had its grand opening with Shiva's Headband playing in August of that year, and it successfully filled the gap, hosting many small and unprofitable artists, giving them a platform and breathing life into the Austin music scene. In March of 1971, Jerry Jeff Walker would play the Armadillo, and in August of 1972, Willie Nelson, disillusioned with the commercialism in the Nashville country scene, came to Austin and played a very receptive audience at the Armadillo. In this way, from the ashes of the mescaline and LSD-fueled psych rock scene of the 60s, a new scene of marijuana-smoking cowboys was born, namely outlaw country. Psychedelic influences can certainly be felt when listening to outlaw country records, with hippies and rednecks alike living together and enjoying music at the Armadillo. In 1973, Willie would release Shotgun Willie, and Jerry Jeff would release Viva Terlingua, 2 of the defining musical statements in the outlaw country movement, and albums which I believe influence alternative country music and the sound of Austin to this day. Outlaw country is its own video for another time, but I have been amazed by the Austin music history that predates even this groundbreaking genre. This video would not have been possible without the contributions of Paul Drummond and Julian Cope in their book I Mind, the saga of Rocky Erickson and the 13th Floor Elevators, the pioneers of the psychedelic sound, which is an excellent read that I highly recommend checking out if you're interested in this story. I would also like to highlight the Austin Museum of Popular Culture, whose online exhibit of Armadillo World Headquarters flyers and media helps to form the critical link between the 60s psych scene and outlaw country. Finally, I would like to point any interested listeners to the albums I have listened to while researching this video that help to get a feel for the genre and explore the sounds of Texas from the 60s. I've included these albums and other sources in the description. Thank you very much.